Hi, Professor Kalamanis here. So I'm looking at our course and I'm just going to go into the content tab and we have, here's our list of our course. Here's where midterm stuff is. There is an introduction to rhetoric. There's a handout that's very helpful. There's a Padlet. And then there's an assignment asking you to read a peer-reviewed journal article and write a response. So I'm going to go ahead and open this. This is preparation for the midterm. You'll see the link for the article here. So I just want to really point to certain things that you maybe don't know about these. So these articles are called peer review because every researcher has to run it through their peers. And that means that there are people that read this. There's a whole process that you go through. So this article, you want to make sure that you're looking at it and you understand that this is the title. It's a research article. You want to be able to identify the topic, right? Where does it appear? So you have to kind of pay attention to all of the different elements of the article. So there's an email address here. You can get in touch with one of the main researchers. This is the main article person, who is Olivia Yin. So we write Yin et al. You'll see that in the assignment. It's ETAL, and it is just Latin for end all. Notice there's an introduction in the abstract, the methods, and the results, and then there's a conclusion. So this is a summary at the top of the article. To the left, you can see that it's open access. It has the information of where it appeared, when it was accepted, and when it was published. So this information in the front, called the abstract, you never want to quote from the abstract. When you first look at an article like this, you want to skim through it and just kind of see, like, okay, how long is it? All right, so it's 1 out of 16. And notice that this is very dense. We're kind of skimming through, right? There's data analysis. It has all these results. There are lots of statistics. There's a chart that's going to give you information. And all of this can be helpful to you when you're working on your paper, which is the midterm exam. So for the midterm exam, we're going to just really strike through, what do you need to know about this article? So I would encourage you to read it. It is very dense. So there are going to be parts where maybe you're not completely understanding the article. That's okay. But here where it has the conclusion, this is going to tell us basically what the article is highlighting. So it says here, in this survey of high school students performed almost 2 years after the onset of COVID-19 in the United States, a relatively high proportion reported moderate or severe anxiety symptoms as assessed by the GAD-7. Our data suggests that the negative impact of COVID-19 on the anxiety levels of high school students may be long-lasting. Whether the heightened anxiety results in functional deficits is still uncertain, but resources for assessment and treatment should be prioritized. So you can see that at the end of their research, they're saying this needs to be an important thing that happens. We need to keep studying this. So what this article does is it goes through, I'm going to go back to the top now, it goes through looking at high school students. So you can look at this now, right? A National Mental Health Survey. So they made a survey. It's called the General Anxiety 7 GAD. And they're talking about this, right? Over a 2-month period, students from 9 to 12 in a single high school, so 546 people, were invited to complete an online survey after electronic parental consent. Bivariate and chi-squared analyses examined demographic differences in anxiety scores and the impact on outcomes. Qualitative analyses examined related themes from open-ended questions. So you can see this is a dense, medically focused article from the NIH. These are the kinds of things that we do ask you to read at the college level, but obviously we're reading them to understand the research, not necessarily to become a researcher. So the conclusion can be helpful here, right? In the survey, high school students conducted 2 years after the onset of COVID-19, United States, 47% of females and 21% of males reported moderate or severe anxiety symptoms as assessed by the GAD-7. Whether heightened anxiety results in functional deficits is uncertain, which we already said in the last thing. Okay, so then here's this introduction. It tells us everything about adolescence and stage development and the GAD study. Then this is the study design. You can read this. You don't have to completely understand it. It's going to talk about who the participants were. The statistics in here might be helpful to you because it talks about that it's in Westchester County and 73% are white, 7% are Asian, 17% are black. And it sort of talks about the income levels. The research was taking place in the Irvington School Board, right? And then it talks about how the study instruments were done. So you can see when you're looking at this, this is written in a certain way. There are these headers and then subheaders, right? A header and then another header and a subheader, right? Okay, so this is all of this research. Then we go to the data analysis. The quantitative research, quantitative means that it's the numbers, so like the hard data, and then the qualitative, and that is when the researchers start to interpret the data. So just understanding those two things about the data. And then we have all these results, right? The females were anxious. It gives different reasons why. There were different learning types. You remember this. We all went through this. The different grades. You can see who participated. It looks like 9th graders participated more than the 12th graders, and you can imagine why. Then the breakdown of the race, and then here are some of the questions that they asked. So this might be interesting to you. Again, there's like the GAD statistics, right? So we're looking at this very complicated article. Then there's a whole discussion, right? So that's all the researchers saying, this is what we want you to know. And you can see right here, it says, our findings are consistent with several mental health surveys that included measures of anxiety were conducted on university students in 2020, earlier in the COVID pandemic, and found that females were more likely to report moderate to severe general anxiety than males. Right, so more of the women were anxious than the men. All right, so we can just kind of get this idea now about what is it that this article is giving us. And so for your midterm, you're going to want to understand the article, maybe look at the tables, right? Talk a little bit about suicidality, and then, you know, like I said, looking at the conclusion. So we just have to realize that here's the information, here's who wrote it and researched it and their methodology and all of that. And then notice their own references. So when you're working on a paper, if you're assigned an article, sometimes these references are great resources for you, like how to find more secondary sources. Okay, so that is just a short lesson on how to read an academic journal. I'm going to go back up to the top again and just remind you, this is a peer-reviewed academic journal. Notice that there's a title and the authors and then some information. The abstract talks about the piece, but you never want to quote the abstract. You always want to go into the body of the text and quote from the body of the text. Okay, so I hope that's helpful to you. Headings and subheadings, conclusions, and good luck with everything.